The miracle doctor won't be a kept man. My heart belongs ashore. Chapter 571. Yvonne was worried that Kiran would get angry, so she tossed the access card at him with a smile. Although she did not know where she was, she trusted Kiran with all her heart. Duncan took the access card and knew that it was the real deal by touching it. However, when he saw the number 1 on the card, he smirked. He shook the card and asked, "Is this your access card?" "It's ours," Yvonne smiled and responded. "Ha ha." Duncan laughed with a look of mockery. He scrutinized both of them for a bit and turned to the other 2 security guards. "Are you still not convinced?" Shaking the access card in his hand, he looked at Kiran and Yvonne confidently. "Even if you're a thief, you need to have some brains." He pointed at Fawkes Hill Villa. "These are the best houses in Fawkes Hill. Only the rich and noble live here." He looked at the 2 people in disdain and said, "Look at you 2. You may be dressed nice, but you don't even have a car. How could you say you live in this neighborhood?" Liam and the other guard were stunned. They remembered that Kiran came in a taxi, so they said, "Chief Duncan, they came in a taxi." Ha! Duncan was even more certain now. He stared at Kiran and said, "Forget about the car. Let's talk about this card." He shook the card hard and said, "This is the access card for Villa No, the most luxurious villa in the neighborhood. Do you know who owns this place?" When the guards heard that it was access card number 1, their heads were buzzing as fear crept into them. Of course, they were aware that Villa No belonged to the Suttons. How could the Suttons' access card be in the hands of these 2 youngsters? They clenched the rubber sticks in their hands and stared at Kiran vigilantly. Duncan felt like his judgment was right. He pointed at Kiran and said, "Boy, are you going to surrender now? Or should we send you to the police station?" Kiran frowned at the 3 of them. "I'm going to bed now, so you should contact Ruth Sutton yourself." With that, he walked toward the gate. "Ruth Sutton?" Duncan grew wary when he heard the name Sutton. He repeatedly muttered the name as if he never heard it before. "Chief Duncan? Is that the daughter of the Sutton family?" Liam said to him. Duncan's head was spinning. He stared at Kiran's back. Few people knew the owner of the villa, and even fewer people would dare address them by their full name. They usually referred to her as Miss Sutton. Did the Sutton family give Kiran the access card? Cold sweat broke out on Duncan's forehead, but he was still unwilling to give in. "Hey, did you think you can fool us just because you know Miss Sutton's name? You must have stolen the card." Duncan quickly dialed Ruth's number. The phone number was registered under the property, but it was strictly confidential. Duncan took advantage of his position as chief and obtained it through his personal connections. The call rang once and went through. Ruth's sweet voice came from the other end. "Who's this?" Miss Sutton. I'm the security guard of Fawkes Hill Villa. A man and a woman are entering Villa No. I was wondering if they're thieves?" Duncan finally managed to utter the last word, but he was under so much pressure that it was difficult to breathe. When Ruth heard man and woman, her heart dropped. She did not respond for a while. Duncan thought that she was shocked that someone dared steal from the Suttons. It was just like the movie. Duncan looked at Kiran with a newfound confidence. "Stop there, you thief." Chapter 572. Kiran had already swiped his card to enter when he heard the shouting and stopped. "Get them!" Duncan thought he could curry favor with the Suttons by doing a good deed, so he ordered them enthusiastically. "Shut up!" Ruth growled when she came to her senses. Duncan trembled in fright, almost dropping his phone to the ground. "That's the owner of the villa. You either be polite to him or get out." Ruth sounded like she was going to gobble them up. Duncan's face turned pale as he looked at the calm Kiran. Duncan knew he had made a mistake, so he quickly said, "Yes, ma'am." After hanging up, he trotted up to Kiran and smiled respectfully. "I'm sorry, sir. I was blind earlier." Slap. Duncan slapped himself. He was no longer as arrogant. "Let's go." Kiran walked away. Yvonne smirked, wanting to know who the woman was on the other end of the phone. Could she be in love with Kiran, too? The man was so outstanding that women could not resist him wherever he went. She smiled and followed Kiran. Duncan sensibly led the way to Villa No. After they entered, Duncan fell on his buttocks, feeling like he was about to collapse. His heart pounded as he chastised himself. How could he have been so blind and arrogant? Taking mental note of Kiran and Yvonne's appearances, Duncan eventually gathered the strength to get up and leave. Kiran entered the place and looked around. The spacious living room took up the entire first floor, which was about 300 square meters. They could even hold a ball here. The marble floor was spotless, with clear marble patterns. They could even see their reflections on the floor. Yvonne looked at the interior of the house and said, "The decoration and furnishings in the villa are more expensive than the villa itself. As long as it's livable, that's good enough for me. I'm going to bed," Kiran said indifferently, and walked up the stairs. "Hubby!" Yvonne suddenly quickened her pace and put her hands around his neck. Before Kiran could react, she was already clinging to him. Perhaps it was what the taxi driver said, but for the first time, their two hearts seemed to draw closer. Yvonne nestled into his arms. She thought Kiran was contemplating whether he should be with her, so she looked up and said, "It's that time of the month." Her face reddened when she realized that he was not looking at her at all. "You're overthinking," Kiran said frankly. Yvonne was angry. She hooked her arms around his neck and kissed him. Kiran turned to dodge her kiss and said, "Go to sleep." He carried her upstairs. Yvonne was slightly disappointed, but the fact that Kiran was willing to carry her gave her a new sense of hope. The two of them went into the bedroom. Kiran put Yvonne down and gave her a massage to help her fall asleep. Then, he went into a different room. Nothing happened between the two of them. Kiran only came to the villa to accompany Yvonne, but Yvonne was happy with that. She fell asleep with a smile on her face. The Sherman's house. Walter and William sat together with gloomy expressions. Ted was still in the hospital. The sight of him was too horrible to look at. "Walter, what do we do?" William looked at Walter and asked loudly. Unlike what people expected, the two brothers of the Sherman family did not fight like enemies for Mysticor Enterprise. In private, they were actually very close. After hearing that Ted was crippled, Walter and William were plotting revenge. When Joel brought back the news that a young man was driving Sawyer's car, the three of them immediately assumed that the young man was Kiran. How were they going to take revenge? "It seems like it's impossible for us to deal with that boy," Walter said glumly. William sneered. "Is he that powerful? We need to go about this cautiously." Walter fell silent for a moment and continued, "I suggest we get someone to do the dirty work." "How?" William asked. "We'll have Joel recruit some men from the Lions Club to provoke me at Mysticor. When I lose my temper, they'll wreak havoc on the company." Walter paused, his gaze turning sinister. "When Kiran retaliates, Joel will flee, leaving the Lions Club men to deal with him. Enraged, they'll eliminate Kiran." William's eyes lit up. "That's a brilliant plan. The Lions Club boasts many skilled individuals. Elder Faber has mastered martial arts, capable of dispatching Kiran in one swift blow." Walter nodded with excitement in his eyes. "Uncle, why don't we instigate conflict between Felix and Kiran? If Felix gets beaten, his Uncle Charlie will undoubtedly seek revenge, providing us with additional manpower," Joel suggested confidently, his eyes gleaming with anticipation of Kiran's demise. "Joel's idea is even better," Walter declared, his expression cunning and confident. The three of them discussed the plan in detail before hurrying to visit Ted at the hospital. Unaware of the looming threat, Kiran slept soundly through the night. When he got up the next morning, Kiran packed up and went out for a walk before going to Mysticor. He did not go up to see Yvonne as he was worried that she might have other ideas. He felt that Yvonne was getting even bolder than Serena. Kiran got out and leisurely walked around Fawkes Hill. This was the first chance he had to appreciate his surroundings. Just when Kiran turned a corner, he saw Archie, Lucia, and Bianca getting in the car. "Mr. Campbell?" Kiran shouted. Archie turned and was overjoyed to see Kiran, especially after he knew that Kiran had brought him wild ginseng worth millions and priceless tea. He smiled and waved at him. "Kiran! Kiran!" Anger flashed across Bianca's beautiful face, while Lucia seemed ready to explode at the sight of him. Chapter 573. When Kiran left yesterday, their family was in chaos. Lindy had embarrassed the entire whole family. The thought of picking up the stuff from the garbage made Bianca want to vomit. Lucia was angry that Kiran was being so pretentious. He did not tell them about the gifts just to make fun of her own lack of taste. Was he embarrassing them on purpose? Lucia refused to accept his gifts. "What are you doing here?" Lucia's face darkened as if he were a thief. Archie looked around and saw no one else. He was also curious as to why Kiran was there because it was hard for outsiders to come in. However, he kept a smile on his face. "Kiran, are you stalking us?" Bianca looked wary. "Dad, did you tell Kiran that we live here?" Archie shook his head. "I haven't had the chance to." "Kiran, you can't stay in our villa," Lucia shouted sternly. The look of disgust on her face was beyond words. Yesterday's wild ginseng and special tea incident was embarrassing enough. Although they were valuable, it did not change the way she saw Kiran. On the contrary, she looked down on him more for having no sense. If he had sold everything, he would have been a multi-millionaire now, but he did not have that kind of wisdom. She thought Kiran was a complete fool that was unworthy of her daughter. Kiran was used to Lucia's snobbery. He looked at Archie and smiled. "I'm out here for a walk." "A walk? This isn't a park," Bianca sneered and looked around. Lucia smirked at him. "Bianca earned hundreds of thousands of gifts during her live stream yesterday. She's a popular streamer now, so she can easily buy a villa here." She tidied her hair and said, Once Lord of the Ocean gives her more gifts, it would be even easier. Kiran made no comment. In Lucia's eyes, he could never afford a villa here in his lifetime. Mom, it's Lord of the Sea, Bianca quickly corrected her mother. Lucia smiled and said, Kiran, isn't the name Lord of the Sea so manly? That's a real man. She pointed around her. I don't know how you got in here, but I'm telling you to get out as soon as possible. When the security guards see you, they'll call the police and put you in jail. Lucia looked like a dancing clown in Kiran's eyes. If it were not for Archie's sincerity, he would not even bother listening to her. He even wondered what her reaction would be like if she knew that he was Lord of the Sea. Just then, Duncan drove over in a security patrol buggy. Security is here, Bianca shouted. Lucia thought Kiran had sneaked in to find a home to stay in. Now that security was here, she had to chase him out. What if the other residents blamed them? She quickly waved the guard over. Security, come here! Duncan already noticed Kiran there, so he sped up. He did not apologize properly yesterday, so he must apologize today. Lucia saw the security guard speeding up and was even more certain that Kiran had sneaked in. She looked at Kiran and said, If you want to run now, you better hurry, or else you'll be caught by the security guard and sent to the police. Archie looked at Lucia with a cold face. What are you talking about? This is our home, and Kiran is family. How could you call him a thief? He turned to Kiran. Don't worry. Just stay here. If they ask, just say that this is your home and that I'm your father-in-law. Lucia was furious. Archie, are you insane? I screech. There was a sound of tires braking as Duncan stopped the vehicle. He unbuckled his seatbelt and hopped out. Lucia saw how anxious he was and thought he was there to arrest Kiran. She walked over with a smile and said, Security, we don't know who this man is. He broke into our neighborhood. Take him away and see if he's a thief. When Duncan heard the word thief, his head spun, feeling like his unhealed wound had opened again. Was she not making the same mistake he made yesterday by calling him a thief? What thief? He was a god. Archie was annoyed. He glared at Lucia and said, What are you talking about? He's our. Duncan, let's continue our patrol. Kiran knew Duncan had come to apologize to him, but he did not want Lucia to know that he lived there. Duncan was slightly stunned, but he soon understood that Kiran was keeping a low profile. He saw Lucia's hostility toward Kiran and secretly called her a fool. He nodded immediately and Kiran got in. He waved at Archie and said, Goodbye, Mr. Campbell. Duncan started the buggy. It turned out that you came in here to work as a security guard, yet you pretentiously said that you're here for a walk. How shameless. Lucia spat on the ground, mocking him. Bianca also looked at him in disgust. Then you don't need me to get you a job in Mysticor, right? Kiran smirked without a word, thinking, Tim the chairman of Mysticor, okay? Silly girl. Why bother? Lucia turned to Archie instead. I'm telling you, Kiran cannot live in Fawkes Hill. If anyone finds out we have a security guard living in our house, I'll kill you. Lucia spoke loudly so Kiran could hear her. Kiran simply smiled. He had no words for someone as ignorant as Lucia. Sir, well, where would you like to go? Duncan asked cautiously while driving. Send me to the gate. I'd like to go to Mysticor Enterprise. Yes, sir. Duncan was curious about Kiran's identity. He was acquainted with someone like Ruth, yet he wanted to go to Mysticor. Who was this man? The thought of Yvonne's beauty made him admire Kiran even more. Their patrol car drove slowly as Archie's car passed them. Lucia did not want Archie to pick Kiran up, so she drove instead. When she saw Kiran in the buggy, her eyes were full of ridicule. She sneered and said to Archie in the passenger seat, Sitting in a BMW is different from sitting in a buggy. Don't be a fool and ruin Bianca's future happiness. Bianca agreed with her mother. Archie's face turned gloomy. He could not stand his wife, but he had a feeling that Kiran was hiding something. Kiran did not think much when he saw their car. After he got to the gate, he rushed over to Mysticor. There, he spotted Bianca standing at the entrance, smiling at employees coming and going but not entering herself. She appeared to be searching for someone. Kiran was puzzled. Wasn't she already employed as an executive? Chapter 574. Vroom. The sudden roar of a car engine filled the air as a dazzling Maybach sports car sped over. Employees stepped aside in fear of being hit. Screech! The sports car skidded to a stop at the company's entrance, blocking access for other vehicles. Inside the car sat a handsome man dressed in standard white-collar attire, sporting oversized sunglasses and a smug smile. Kiran recognized Felix immediately but couldn't help but mock his ostentatious display, blocking the entire entrance with his car. Felix, however, paid no attention to Kiran. His focus was solely on Bianca. Bianca was in a black suit, exposing her dainty wrists. The sharp contrast of her black clothes and fair wrists was almost blinding. Her slender legs were tightly covered with black stockings. The fair skin under it made her look even more charming. Her beautiful face and flowing hair made her look all the more eye-catching. In many people's eyes, her beauty was simply mesmerizing. Although Bianca was just standing there with a smile, she naturally exuded an aura. In Felix's eyes, she looked like a Greek goddess. He wished he had a special vision that could see the even more beautiful view under Bianca's clothes. If it were not for Kiran saying that he had STDs yesterday, he might have succeeded in making her his. Since Bianca was an only daughter, the thought of marrying into the Campbell family and taking ownership of their property made him even greedier. Yesterday's unfortunate event at the restaurant and being ridiculed by Lord of the Sea in the live stream did not stop him from fantasizing about conquering such beauty. Felix opened the car door and smiled. He looked at Bianca in a gentlemanly manner and shouted, "Bianca! Mr. Grant!" Bianca's face was full of excitement when she saw him. It turned out that she was waiting for him. Impressed by the grand gesture of Felix blocking the entrance and calling her name, Bianca happily trotted over. Her slender legs moved gracefully, akin to willow branches swaying in the breeze, exuding a captivating and sultry aura. Each step echoed with the click of her high heels hitting the ground, evoking a rhythm that seemed to strike the hearts of onlookers repeatedly. Felix's eyes ignited with desire, flames flickering within as his longing for her intensified. Sensing his burning gaze, Bianca felt no nervousness, only a sense of contentment and happiness. "Bianca, you're gorgeous." Felix did not care about his colleague's eyes, nor did he care about his car blocking the entrance. "Mr. Grant, I've been waiting for you to take me inside," Bianca said with a charming smile. She came here yesterday just to say hello, so she had not officially started working yet. Why else would she not be able to enter? To put it plainly, she was not even an employee at Mysticor. In short, the so-called high-ranking position that she boasted about was just Felix's promise. "Let's go," Felix said confidently when he saw Bianca waiting for him. At that moment, he had already made up his mind. When they entered, he was going to do her first. He could finally vent all his pent-up anger from yesterday. When Bianca heard that she was going in, she was completely relieved. She perked up and looked even more confident, as if she were a senior executive of the company. At that moment, Kiran walked over slowly. When Bianca saw him, she thought that she was mistaken. Kiran was already a security guard at Fawkes Hill. Why was he here? When Felix saw him, he felt like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. There was annoyance and disgust on his face. The fact that Kiran publicly announced his STDs was humiliating. "Hey, what are you doing here?" Kiran looked at Felix's fierce expression calmly. He smiled and looked at Bianca. "Bianca, didn't you say you'll get me a job here?" "Well, here I am." Bianca never dreamed that he would say that so straightforwardly, which embarrassed her. She thought she would settle her job first before giving Kiran a job. She intended to make him a nominal salesperson and fire him right away. However, she had not completed her onboarding process, so how could she give Kiran work? Many Mysticor employees were looking back and forth between Bianca and Kiran. Some of them saw Kiran violently beat Ted up yesterday, so they were frightened of him, even though they did not know who he was. They just thought of him as a hero who saved Shuri. When they heard him asking Bianca for work, they were confused. Was it not easier to ask Shuri? The arrogance on Bianca's face dissipated a little from the embarrassment. She looked at Kiran and muttered, "Aren't you working as a security guard at Fawkes Hill Villa?" Kiran sneered. Since when did he become a security guard? It was funny how these people treated their wishful thinking as reality. He calmly said, "I think it's better to work here. I can see you more. Plus, there are many beautiful women and sports cars here." Kiran gave her a genuine smile. Bianca felt a chill running down her spine as if she had encountered a ghost. She was certain that this toad was trying to get the swan. The other employees at the company were shocked. Who was this man? How could he simply say he was there to look at beautiful women? "Kiran, I think you should stay as a security guard at Fawkes Hill." Bianca wanted him gone. "Will you let me stay at your villa?" Kiran asked on purpose. Bianca shook her head like a rattle. "No." "Then, I think I should work here." Kiran smiled at her. Bianca was crying inside. What was she going to do? Felix was burning with anger when he heard their conversation without acknowledging him. He saw the healing elder with white hair and white beard sitting in the security room and wondered, how could a man like that become a security guard? Rolling his eyes, he said, "Bianca, if he wants to work here, let's make him a security guard then." Bianca heard Felix making the arrangements for her and felt like she had met her savior. "Thank you, Mr. Grant." "What for?" Felix took out his phone to make a call. Bianca looked at Kiran smugly now. "Mr. Grant will make you a security guard at Mysticor now." She pointed at the company's sign. "You see, this is the largest company in Fawkes Hill. You should be honored to be here. Being a security guard here may be the most you ever achieve in your life." Bianca instantly became full of herself again, as if she had given him the job. Kiran calmly said, "I need a formal appointment." Chapter 575. Kiran wanted to know who the pests were in Mysticor. How could a piece of trash like Felix be allowed to work as a manager here? He wanted an appointment so he could find out who was in charge. He wanted them all out of here. At the same time, Felix made a phone call, and a ringing tone came from the crowd, accompanied by the sound of a woman's high heels hitting the ground. Everyone looked in her direction and made way for her. Many employees even said hello with a smile on their faces. "Hello, Ms. Robinson." Kiran turned around and saw a woman who looked like she was in her 30s. Her wavy chestnut brown hair cascaded behind her head, swaying in the air with every step. She was radiating charm. The beautiful woman had dark brown eyes, and the corners of her eyes were slightly lifted, which gave her an arrogant and stern look. Her voluptuous figure swayed as she walked. Kiran was intrigued by her. Felix quickly greeted her. "Hello, Ms. Robinson." Ms. Robinson was Tess Robinson. She was the human resource manager of Mysticor and was in charge of talent recruitment. One word from her could determine another person's fate. It was impossible for Shuri, the general manager, or even Sawyer, the chairman, to take care of every employee. For a long time, it had been her job to decide people's fates, so she naturally had an arrogant air. When Tess saw Felix, she set aside her arrogance as his uncle was the vice president of the Lions Club. She was nothing compared to him. "Mr. Grant, what are you doing here? You're blocking the way." Felix could not say that his car was blocking the way, so he looked at Kiran and said, "Ms. Robinson, this person here wants to work as a security guard. I was just calling you to ask for your permission." When Tess heard about the recruitment of security guards, she was reminded of what happened yesterday, and she got worried. Walter had already hinted to her about recruiting security guards, implying that Shuri was not allowed to enter the company in the future. Hearing Felix recommend a security guard, she assumed he knew the man, or at least thought he was reliable, so she nodded. "Give him the job, then." "Thank you, Ms. Robinson." Felix did not expect it to go so well and looked relieved. Bianca was also relieved that the matter was solved with just one sentence. She looked at Kiran and said, "Why don't you thank Ms. Robinson and Mr. Grant?" When Tess heard Bianca say that, she turned to look at Kiran and was stunned by his handsome looks. Kiran's charisma and exposed muscles filled Tess with the desire to experience his manliness. Kiran felt Tess's lust emanating from her, and his eyes were full of contempt. He took a closer look at the woman. She was wearing a short white dress with her long legs exposed. Her skin was so fair that it complemented her white skirt. The white crystal lace-up stilettos and faint marks on her feet tied the whole look together, making her look enchanting. Tess was surprised to see Kiran look at her like that. Due to her position and the fact that she was Walter's mistress, she was clearly superior to others. When everyone saw her, they would always look away. Nobody would dare look at her like this. She then smirked provocatively. Bianca noticed Kiran's gaze and thought he was moved by the sight of the beautiful woman. That made her despise him even more, but she was secretly glad that she had nothing to do with the man, or else it would have been humiliating. "Now that Ms. Robinson has agreed, you don't need an appointment anymore," Felix said arrogantly. "Why should I believe it without a formal appointment?" Kiran was persistent. "You want to be formally appointed?" Tess did not expect him to say that. "Yes, he does." Felix took the opportunity to downgrade Kiran's image in Tess's eyes. "That's easy." Tess took out her phone to make a call. After exchanging a few words, she hung up and looked at Kiran nonchalantly. "I'll send you the official appointment soon." Kiran did not speak as if he was not concerned about this at all. Tess could not understand the man before her. Less than 5 minutes later, a female employee brought the document down. She went up to Tess and said, "Ms. Robinson." Tess nodded and took it from her. She said to Kiran, "Tell me your name and ID number and I'll fill it in for you. After that, you'll be a security guard at Mysticor." Kiran sneered. These people could not get more arrogant than this. How could they turn the appointment of personnel in this company into a one-man show? It was almost as if the chairman and general manager of the company were non-existent. "My name is Kiran, and my ID number is." He did not hide anything. He told her his information truthfully and let her fill in the document. Tess quickly wrote it down and handed it to him. "Check it yourself." Kiran took it from her and saw that the handwriting was as beautiful as she was, with hints of feminine dominance between the lines. He was now even more dissatisfied with the employees of Mysticor. Why would he want a human resource manager like her? "It's correct," Kiran said calmly. "Keep it. From now on, you'll work here as a security guard," Tess replied indifferently. Bianca was happy to see his onboarding completed. "Kiran, why aren't you thanking them?" Kiran saw how happy Bianca looked and thought of the raise she mentioned before, so he smiled and said, Bianca, don't forget to help me get a raise. Bianca's happy face showed traces of embarrassment. She did not think that Kiran would bring that up. How shameless. Of course, she was just bluffing then. She looked at Tess awkwardly and was relieved she did not pay much attention. Your raise depends on your ability. Tess looked at the car parked at the door and ordered Kiran, find the car's owner and make them drive it away. It's obstructing our employees. Felix nodded and was about to apologize. Damn it! Did someone die in this company? At that moment, angry curses came from outside the crowd, followed by screams and sounds of employees running away. The scene was chaotic. Everyone looked over and saw 20 muscular men walking over with Joel as their leader. Chapter 576. Tess frowned the moment she saw Joel walking in. Even though Walter Sherman took care of her as his mistress, she didn't realize that the Sherman family was united against outsiders but fought amongst themselves. She knew about the deep rivalry between William and Walter Sherman. After Sawyer Sinfield and his wife were rendered unconscious, the battle for control over Mysticor Enterprise had reached a fever pitch. Now, seeing Joel approach, she felt annoyed and worried. She turned to Kiran and ordered, Kiran, these people are here to cause trouble at the company. Kick them out now. Felix, recognizing Joel and his crew, knew these people usually fawned over him, considering his uncle was the deputy head of the Lions Club. What he really wanted was for Kiran to be beaten up by these people, hoping they would create chaos in the company. When no one could handle the situation, he would step in to resolve it, thus becoming the company's hero and gaining everyone's admiration. This thought brought him joy and anticipation. Bianca hoped Kiran would be severely beaten by these people, hoping to sever any ties with him and avoid any impact on her family's unity. She glanced at Kiran, already imagining him being beaten down, begging for mercy and wailing in pain. When Kiran saw Joel and his group approaching, he remained calm and composed. Joel, seeing Kiran, felt secretly fortunate for not having clashed with Kiran the day before. He hoped Kiran would hurt the people he brought, provoking the Lions Club. He pretended to be very imposing and yelled, "Are you stupid? Didn't you hear what I said?" Felix was excited by Joel's demeanor and almost applauded in support. Bianca clenched her fists, waiting for Kiran to be taught a lesson. "Kiran, quickly get rid of these people," Tess urged anxiously and sternly. "You all need to leave now, or else." At that very moment, the healing elder, who had not come out of the security room, stepped out and shouted. Joel couldn't help but burst into laughter when he saw the healing elder's white beard. He looked at Tess and said, "Tess, is your Mysticor Enterprise into acting now? Why is he wearing props here to show off?" Tess was equally surprised to see the healing elder, since she was not at the company the previous day and was unaware of the incident. The healing elder, aware of the situation, had always known Kiran wasn't actually working as a security guard but was playing along with these fools, who were oblivious to the truth. Now, with Joel causing trouble, the healing elder naturally stepped forward. "Kiran, you're a security guard now," Bianca reminded him sternly, deliberately emphasizing his identity. She hoped Kiran would fail in his duty and disappear from her life. Tess also looked at Kiran and was about to speak. "You all leave now, or I'll make you," the healing elder said to Joel and his group with authority. "Old man, are you looking for trouble?" One of Joel's men, unable to contain his anger, cursed and charged forward. "Fall," the healing elder shouted, and without anyone seeing how, the attacking man fell to the ground, unconscious and tightly clenching his teeth as if on the verge of death. The crowd gasped in shock. "Old man, you've got some skills." Joel was surprised and voiced his amazement. The healing elder laughed. To think that I, the healing elder, would be complimented for having some skills. "How amusing." "Healing elder," Joel repeated. "Are you the miracle doctor, the healing elder?" Someone couldn't help but exclaim, seeking confirmation. The healing elder trembled. He didn't deserve to be called the miracle doctor. In front of Kiran, he was a liar. However, in many people's eyes, he was the healing elder. Even Tess looked curiously at the healing elder. Without further explanation, the healing elder faced Joel's group. "Is there anyone else?" "I don't care who the hell you are," another thug who didn't believe in the supernatural shouted and rushed forward. He waved his fists, wanting to beat the healing elder to death. "Fall!" Healing elder raised his hand and shouted again. Thump! The attacker fell to the ground as if possessed. Hiss! The atmosphere was filled with astonishment as the crowd gasped at the display of the healing elder's prowess. Joel felt a headache coming on. He had come for Kiran, but Kiran hadn't even made a move yet, and this healing elder had already interfered. Thinking quickly, he tried to bribe the healing elder. "Healing elder, we were ignorant and offended you. I'll give you 10 million yuan. How about you save my people?" The healing elder glanced at Kiran for approval and received a nod. "Agreed." The healing elder accepted the offer joyously. Joel hurriedly went forward and cupped his fists at the elder in respect. "Give me your bank card number now." The healing elder hurriedly provided his bank details, and the transaction was made. Within minutes, the money was transferred. The healing elder, with a wide smile, merely kicked the unconscious men a couple of times, waking them up. They looked at the healing elder, wanting to retaliate, but Joel intervened, reminding them of the healing elder's mercy that spared their lives. "This is the healing elder, the miracle doctor. It's all thanks to the healing elder that you can live." When they heard this, their anger immediately disappeared. They looked at the healing elder, with respect. "Healing elder, we're here at Mysticor Enterprise for something else. Please forgive us for disturbing you." Joel cupped his fists again, implying that the elder no longer needed to care about what Joel's people did there. The healing elder did not reply. Joel thought that he had it all agreed. When he thought about how he had settled the matter with 10 million yuan and could even befriend the miracle doctor, it could be said to be perfect. His father would probably be overjoyed. He became even more smug. He looked at Tess and the others and said coldly, "Damn it, get lost! From now on, this Mysticor Enterprise is ours." As he spoke, he glanced at Kiran from the corner of his eye, waiting for him to be agitated and attack. Kiran didn't seem to hear him. "Go," Joel ordered loudly. His men rushed at Tess and the others. "Kiran, hurry up and stop him!" Bianca was still hoping that Kiran would die. "Fall!" The healing elder shouted and waved his hand again. Thump, thump. There was another series of thuds as Joel's men fell to the ground. Joel quickly turned to the elder healing angrily, but the old man just ignored his anger and asked with a smile, "Do you have another 10 million? Joel was stunned on the spot. He felt like a fool. Chapter 577. Mockery? That word came to many people's minds. The expression on the healing elder's face was undoubtedly mocking. Joel, who thought that by giving 10 million he had made a connection with the healing elder, now felt like an utter fool, ridiculed and scorned. His mouth twitched as he faced the healing elder and asked, "Elder, what is this supposed to mean?" "I want money," the healing elder said, smiling as though it was the most natural thing to ask. "Didn't I already give you 10 million? Joel suppressed his rage, his voice ice cold. "Didn't I just wake them up from their coma just now?" The healing elder responded indifferently. Are you playing me?" Joel, who had held back his anger out of respect for the healing elder's reputation, was now ready to explode. "Playing you?" The healing elder laughed derisively. "You're not even worth it." What did you say?" Joel was visibly agitated. "With your level of intelligence, you think I need to play you? You really aren't worth it." The healing elder shook his head, laughing. He recalled that, before he met Kiran, he could easily obtain hundreds of millions with just a few words. Moreover, which of those people did not have more experience than Joel? To the healing elder, Joel was genuinely not worth his time or respect. Joel couldn't believe the healing elder considered him unworthy even after receiving his 10 million. He was boiling with rage. "You old man, don't push it. I'll teach you a lesson. Slap." The healing elder slapped Joel across the face. "How dare you scold me?" "Ah." Joel cried out in pain, his cheeks swelling visibly. "You old guy, you dare to hit me." Slap. "Yes, I did." The healing elder's face was full of mockery, increasing the strength of his slap. You. Joel was so enraged that his body shook and his eyes filled with a murderous look. He hadn't expected the healing elder to mock him and dare to hit him. Everyone present was stunned, not expecting the white-haired healing elder to be so domineering and violent. The healing elder wanted to make a good impression in front of Kiran, hoping to leave a favorable impression. He looked proudly at Joel. "Now, will you pay with money or your life?" Spit. Joel, infuriated by the slap and feeling threatened, spat at the healing elder. "Damn it!" Whack. Whack. Before he could finish, the healing elder had already slapped him twice more. Joel was dizzy from the beating, and his lungs were about to explode from anger. "Now, I really want your life." The healing elder pointed at the people lying unconscious on the ground. "If they are not detoxified within an hour, they will indeed die." You. Joel wanted to curse but held, scared by the beatings and not daring to continue insulting. He had wanted to provoke Kiran into action, expecting the Lions Club's experts to handle the situation. However, the healing elder had already made his move before Kiran could act. "Just you wait." Joel immediately took out his phone and called his father, William Sherman. William was waiting for Joel to make a scene and then intervene. Happy to receive his son's call, he quickly answered, "What's the situation?" "Dad, the healing elder has appeared and poisoned our people," Joel hurriedly explained. William was initially stunned but quickly became pleased. "Don't worry, I'm bringing people over now." After hanging up, he gathered his men and rushed over. Thinking his father had called in reinforcements, Joel smugly pointed at the healing elder. "Old man, the Lions Club's experts are coming for you. Just wait to be flattened." Hearing that, the healing elder glanced at Kiran, saw his nod, and understood that Kiran wanted to escalate the situation. He was instantly filled with confidence. "Flatten?" the healing elder asked mockingly, stepping forward. "Let me flatten you first." Whack, whack, whack. Slap after slap, he began to punch Joel from both sides, unleashing a barrage of hits. Joel felt like he was going to die, wondering what kind of monster he had encountered. Despite his martial arts training from a young age and a solid foundation, facing the healing elder felt like seeking punishment. He had no chance to retaliate. Attempts to fight back ended with him falling to the ground. This left Joel in a state of extreme frustration and humiliation. The healing elder did not poison Joel, but humiliated him as if toying with a dog. Soon, Joel was beaten to a pulp, his face swollen, and his clothes covered in dirt, a far cry from his previous dapper appearance. Felix, Grant, and others watched in silence, unsure what to say. The healing elder seemed to be merely fulfilling the duties of a security guard. The roar of engines heralded the arrival of William and his group. It was Kiran's first time seeing William. Joel looked very much like his father, but the senior man appeared more composed and fierce. Tess Robinson, concerned about the impending trouble, quickly turned to the healing elder. "We can't let William enter the premises." "All right," the healing elder readily agreed. With a swift motion, he sent Joel flying with a slap, as if struck by a high-speed train, landing in front of William. William, failing to recognize his own son, kicked him away. "Get out!" Joel cried out in pain, and William, recognizing his son's voice, was shocked to see him so disfigured. "Joel! Dad! Woo, woo!" Joel began to cry bitterly. William, realizing he couldn't recognize his own son in front of everyone, felt deeply humiliated. Seeing his son beaten so severely fueled his rage, and he gestured to his men. "Attack!" William, a minor leader under the Lions Club, had dozens of men with him. Angered by the sight of their leader's son and their comrade lying on the ground, they charged at the healing elder without a second thought. "Fall!" The healing elder coolly raised his hand and uttered. Without even realizing what hit them, the attackers collapsed to the ground, unconscious. William was shocked, fixing his gaze on the healing elder. "Are you the healing elder?" "No wonder you have such a foolish son," the healing elder retorted mockingly. He raised his hand again and spoke. William staggered back several meters, holding his swollen, bruised face, and glared at the healing elder. "Damn you, old man, you dare to hit me, I." "Slap," the healing elder responded with another slap. "What can you do if I hit you? I'll fight you," William charged at the healing elder. Thud. With a swift kick, the healing elder knocked William to the ground. "You should call more people?" Chapter 578. The healing elder's single kick and the accompanying crash once again sent shockwaves through the crowd. While people might not fully understand just how formidable the healing elder was, they were all deeply shocked by his uncanny ability to use poison. Clearly, this clash with the Lions Club wasn't your typical conflict. It was dominated by the use of poison to incapacitate the opposition. The treatment that Joel and William received seemed to prove the healing elder's abilities, but it didn't seem to showcase any overwhelming strength. The crowd was completely baffled. William decided to escalate the matter and call for backup. "Damn it, you just wait," he cursed before making a call for reinforcements. Having significant connections within the Lions Club, a group of people arrived swiftly. Leading the newcomers was a pale, scholarly-looking man with a gentle appearance but exuding a sinister ferocity. Upon arriving and seeing William and Joel fighting each other, he was on the verge of exploding in anger. It turns out, in the time they were waiting, the healing elder hadn't been idle. He continued to deal with William and Joel, and eventually, tired of the act, made the father and son fight each other. Fearing death by poisoning, the two dared not disobey. "Who are you?" the scholarly man demanded of the healing elder. Recognizing his rescuer, William cried out as if he had seen a savior. "Brother David, please avenge us!" This scholarly man, known as David Halpern, was the president of the Golden Lions Club, one of the 3 branches under the Lions Club. The core of the Lions Club, the Sacred Lions, seldom got involved in direct actions, being more about the club's core members and leaders. The Golden Lions handled business matters and was led by an elder. The Silver Lions, the least prestigious, dealt with underworld activities in Fawkes under the guidance of another elder. William, with some martial arts skills and willing to spend money, had become a minor leader within the Golden Lions. His status in Fawkes was significant, commanding respect even from officials. David Halpern, as the president of the Golden Lions, was highly regarded by many. As William and David were very close, the two of them addressed each other as brothers. With his dignity at stake, it wasn't just about saving face for William. It was about revenge. Seeing William and Joel beaten to a pulp, David was furious but managed to stay calm and asked the healing elder for his name. "He is the healing elder," William said. David was slightly taken aback upon learning the healing elder's identity, recognizing him as a famed physician sought after by many for his healing. To see him here and in such a role was surprising. Upon learning that his men had been poisoned and defeated, David, despite his anger, couldn't help but admire the healing elder's medical skills. He cupped his fists and politely asked, "Elder, why have you taken action against our men?" The healing elder, pointing to Mysticor Enterprise, replied, "I'm the security here. They came to cause trouble, and it's my duty to deal with it." Hiss. This revelation left David speechless. Was the revered healing elder acting as security for Mysticor Enterprise? He was respected by countless people. Everyone wanted him to treat their illness. He turned to look at William. William, furious and spatting blood, accused the healing elder of extorting them. "He poisoned our men and demanded 10 million. We paid, and he poisoned us again, demanding another 10 million, Joel added in desperation. David's face darkened, but he maintained his composure. "Elder, if you need money, you should just say so. Why resort to this?" The healing elder laughed off the accusation, proudly stating, "Do I look like I need money?" David was confused. The healing elder indeed did not look like he lacked money. The healing elder looked proudly at the unconscious people on the ground. "I'm here as a security guard. If they didn't come here, did I carry them here? You." Joel gritted his teeth. David remained calm and looked at the healing elder. "Healing elder, what requests do you have?" "Just state them." Healing elder looked at David with a smile. "Money. I don't need it." What does the healing elder, the elder need then? David knew that the other party's requirements were not low. The healing elder stole a glance at Kiran, and Kiran's gaze landed on William and his son. The healing elder understood that he wanted the father and son dead. He raised his hand and pointed at William. "I want them dead. Damn it, old thing, how dare you take my life?" William flew into a rage. David's expression turned extremely ugly. He stared at the healing elder and said in a low voice, "Healing elder, please think twice." Think twice. The healing elder looked like he was pondering that. "Yes, think twice." David thought he was afraid, and he repeated this coldly. Then, "Add your life to it." The healing elder sneered. You're courting death?" David's pale face finally began to change color, filled with ferocity. "Sigh." The healing elder sighed and looked very sympathetic. "I really want to know what it's like to court death." David almost couldn't breathe. This fellow really knows how to show off. He waved at the people he brought over. "Go! Fall!" The healing elder threw out a handful of powder. Crash, crash, crash! The people who rushed over were all poisoned and fell to the ground. David was stunned. He stared at the elder coldly. "Aren't you going too far?" "In that case, let those who are more capable come," the healing elder teased proudly. David's expression changed several times. In the end, he suppressed his anger. He knew that with this poison all their efforts would be in vain. Hence, he found the number of the left-hand elder Faber Luther and called him. The call connected. After a quick conversation with Faber, he hung up. David's face showed a calm expression as he stared at the healing elder, his arrogance coming back. This time, the healing elder did not beat David up. Instead, he remained silent. He knew that an even bigger fish was coming. Kiran didn't appear because he felt that there weren't enough fish. The healing elder knew very well that he had to be the bait. Soon after, a figure appeared as if flying, landing at the entrance with an aura that immediately lowered the temperature and intensified the atmosphere with killing intent. Seeing the newcomer, hope was rekindled in the eyes of David, William, and Joel. Chapter 579. The newcomer was Faber Luther. He saw that those lying on the ground were all members of the Lions Club, and his face turned a deep shade of blue, showing his surprise and intense focus on the scene. David and others, seeing Faber's reaction, immediately felt bolstered, their whole demeanor brimming with confidence as they straightened their backs. However, the first to react was not them, but Felix. Felix quickly stepped forward, greeting Faber with a face full of flattery. "Elder Luther, hello!" When Faber saw Felix, he only felt that he looked familiar but didn't remember who it was. He didn't respond. "My uncle is Charlie Grant, and I am his nephew." Felix hurriedly introduced himself, emphasizing his direct relation. His face bore an expression of arrogance and pride, knowing his uncle was a vice chairman. This indirectly elevated his status. Bianca, seeing Felix could directly speak with Faber and thinking of the latter's ability to arrive flying, had her face full of starry-eyed admiration. Her gaze involuntarily shifted towards Kiran, filled with mockery and disdain. How could such a man compare with someone like Felix, a shallow nobody? She even wanted to pull Kiran aside to show him what a truly powerful person looked like. Faber, upon hearing Felix's introduction, a flicker of impatience passed through his eyes, yet he replied politely. "So, you're Mr. Grant's nephew?" "Yes." Felix's face lit up with a bright smile, prouder than ever. He glanced at Kiran, wanting to show off, but noticing Kiran's disdainful look, he felt as if his heart was stuffed with cotton, his cheerfulness stifled. "David, what is happening here?" Faber inquired, looking at the unconscious members on the ground. David was about to explain, but Felix interjected. "Elder Luther, this whole situation was caused by Kiran." "Kiran?" When Faber arrived, his attention had been on the Lions Club members, and he had not yet noticed Kiran. "That's him!" Felix pointed towards Kiran. Bianca instinctively distanced herself from Kiran. Upon seeing Kiran, Faber's expression changed drastically. The memory of yesterday at the Sutton estate was deeply imprinted in his mind. He was utterly shocked. Noticing Faber's change in expression, William assumed it was anger and thought their objective to have Faber take action against Kiran was about to be realized. "Elder Luther, Felix is most familiar with the situation. It must be that young man's fault." David's gaze also turned towards Kiran. Although he didn't know him, he found Kiran to be dignified and handsome. But considering the healing elder's status, he was reluctant to offend him too much and did not speak up, simply observing Kiran. Thus, everyone's attention shifted towards Kiran as if he were the root cause of all troubles. Bianca, seeing the Lions Club members focus on Kiran, grew even more anxious and shouted at Kiran. "Kiran, our family has nothing to do with you, and I have even less to do with you. Don't even dream about it." She then turned to Faber with a face full of smiles. "Elder Luther, I don't know this person, and I have absolutely no relation with him." Kiran, however, seemed unaffected, standing calmly in place. Despite Walter and his son being beaten badly, they were not upset. As long as Faber could deal with Kiran, it would be their greatest victory. Thinking of the tens of billions in market value of Mysticor Enterprise becoming their property filled their hearts with anticipation. Faber's expression upon seeing Kiran was incredibly complex. He knew he couldn't provoke Kiran and was worried about escalating the situation further. The scene fell into silence. "Elder Luther, just kill him with one slap." Joel, unaware of the full situation, egged on from the side. Felix, with eyes darting around, laughed and said, "Elder Luther, one slap from you would definitely kill him." Hearing these words, Faber's expression grew even more troubled. Was he supposed to be impressed by their suggestion that he could kill someone with a single slap? Is his slap really that powerful? Kiran, who had been silent, spoke up nonchalantly. "If a slap can smash this car, then I'll be impressed." Saying this, he walked over to the obstructing Maybach, reaching out to touch it. Faber felt a chill in his heart. Was Kiran suggesting he clear the way by smashing the car? "Boy, Elder Luther can smash not just a car, but even a lump of iron," Joel loudly proclaimed, hoping to provoke a reaction. "I don't believe it," Kiran said, his gaze fixed on Felix's car. Felix had a bad feeling, and was just about to say it was his car when suddenly a figure flashed by, followed by a loud smack. Everyone instinctively trembled, turning towards the source of the sound in shock. Felix was dumbfounded. His car had been smashed. The crowd gasped in disbelief. Walter's heart swelled with joy. "Elder Luther is mighty," Joel exclaimed. "Elder Luther is like a god." David also felt vindicated. Elder Luther's skills are unparalleled. Standing beside the destroyed car, Faber's thoughts were conflicted. How could he possibly compare with Kiran? He was merely following orders. Kiran looked at the stunned Felix. "Manager Felix, aren't you going to praise Elder Luther?" Felix wanted to praise him, but his car, which had cost him millions just the day before and he hadn't even enjoyed yet, was now just a heap of scrap metal. He was genuinely angry, yet he dared not vent his frustration on Faber, so he directed all his resentment at Kiran. "Boy, did you see Elder Luther's power? With just a raise of his hand, he could kill you with one slap." Kiran smiled at Faber, who felt a deep sense of shame. He knew that any further discussion would only embarrass him. "David, take the people and leave." "What?" Felix was the first to react in shock. "Leave?" His car had been destroyed and they were just going to leave without taking any action against Kiran? "Elder Luther?" Walter also cried out in confusion. Faber didn't respond to them. The difference in their statuses meant there was no need for dialogue. He turned to David. "Report back to the chairman on this matter of the healing elder using poison, and let the chairman handle it." Without waiting for David to ask further questions, he proudly left. Faber was well aware that the healing elder was acting under Kiran's command, which is why he had obediently used poison. Now it was Kiran taking action against the Lions Club. If he had spoken up, the issue wouldn't just be about the members being poisoned, but whether they would be alive to worry about. The Lions Club was Liongate. He had heard of the tragic fates of Wolfgate and Panthergate. If Liongate were to act rashly, they would merely be following in their footsteps. Thus he exercised caution. However, Walter and others were left completely baffled. What was happening? The outcome they wanted hadn't materialized, leaving them utterly confused. In fact, even the healing elder couldn't understand the situation. Kiran turned to Felix. "Take your trash and leave." Chapter. Trash? Felix, already heartbroken over the destruction of his car worth millions, now felt on the verge of collapse as it was mocked as trash. This was a real blow to his pride. He thought about how all of this was because Kiran didn't believe in Faber Luther's strength and had prompted Faber to demonstrate it, resulting in the destruction of his car. Inside, Felix was seething with rage. What right did a pauper like Kiran have? "Kiran, you destroyed my car." Bianca had also recovered from her shock. She looked angrily at Kiran and scolded him. "Kiran, it's all because of you that Faber's car has become scrap metal. Do you know how much this car costs? Someone like you won't be able to run a sports car in your lifetime. Aren't you going to apologize to young Master Grant now?" When Felix heard this, his anger intensified. His eyes were about to spew fire. He looked at Kiran angrily and pointed at his sports car. "How do you want to compensate me?" Felix had already decided to let Kiran take the responsibility. This way, he could go to Archie to compensate him. Didn't Archie think highly of Kiran? Let's see how he handles it, he thought. Unaware that Felix was calculating against her father, Bianca was even more agitated as she yelled at Kiran, "Felix is asking you. Why aren't you saying anything?" Kiran was even more disappointed in Bianca. She lacked the responsibility and honesty that Archie possessed, completely inheriting her mother Lucia Jensen's greed and selfishness. He guessed it was because Bianca was raised by Lucia, which is why she turned out to be like her mother. He regretted that such a beautiful face was wasted on her. Seeing that Kiran was silent, Felix thought that Kiran was afraid and became even more confident. He continued to press, "Kiran, how do you think we should resolve this?" "How much is this car?" At this moment, the healing elder walked over and asked. "Nearly 6 million yuan, all in all." Felix was very greedy. He wanted Kiran to compensate more, so he added 1 million or so. "Nearly 6 million!" The healing elder mumbled and walked to the abandoned car. Tesk. That's a lot of money." "That's right." Felix's face was full of arrogance and complacency, as if saying, "Do you know who I am?" He looked at Kiran and said, "I'm afraid you won't be able to earn so much money in your life." "Can you earn it?" the healing elder asked Felix with a smile. "Of course. If I can't earn it, how can I buy a car?" Felix didn't understand what the healing elder meant, so he scolded him proudly. "It's good to be able to earn money." The healing elder mumbled and stretched out his hand to Felix. Felix was stunned. "What are you doing? Give me 6 million, the healing elder said with a teasing smile. Give you 6 million. Felix looked at him as if he was an idiot. "Why? I am a security guard here. Your car has affected the work of the company's employees, and I am a security guard. Shouldn't you compensate me?" the healing elder said confidently. Felix almost exploded. He stared at the healing elder, wanting to beat him to death. His car had been smashed, and he wanted Kiran to compensate him, but the other party didn't. Now another lunatic wanted compensation from him instead. "I'm the department manager of the company, and you're just a small security guard," Felix raged. The healing elder waved his hand calmly. "Whether you give it or not, I believe you're well aware of the consequences." "Consequences?" Felix's head buzzed. He looked nervous. Thinking about how so many people from the Lions Club had been poisoned and taken away, he started to feel uneasy. The healing elder looked at the staff at the scene. "Look, there are so many people here. Cars can't get in, and some people's cars have been hit. It's all because of your sports car. You've seriously affected others and my work." He stared at Felix mockingly. "You're suffering from STDs now. You're going to die anyway. What do you need money for? Are you going to bring it with you? If you give me the money now, you might be able to keep your life. You should be grateful to me." "You? What nonsense are you talking about?" His STD was once again mentioned in public. Panic and nervousness appeared on his face as he hurriedly looked at everyone. Bianca thought of this and subconsciously backed away from Felix. She was afraid of catching it. The other employees also backed away. "I don't have STDs, Felix roared. The healing elder ignored him and got into the car calmly. "This lousy car is not only a piece of garbage blocking the way, but also the source of the virus. If you don't pay me, I'm not sure what will happen today." The healing elder's calmness made Felix furious. Finally, he couldn't hold it in anymore. "Old thing, don't be too arrogant. Be careful or my uncle will kill you." "Old thing? Too arrogant? Destroy me?" the healing elder repeated jokingly. Slap. He raised his hand and slapped him. "Call your uncle. P.F." Felix spat out a mouthful of blood, his right cheek red and swollen. Bah! He was totally enraged. He spat out a mouthful of blood on the ground and glared at the healing elder. "How dare you hit me?" Whack! The healing elder slapped him again. "Call your uncle." Felix felt like his lungs were about to explode. The other party was even more arrogant and domineering than him. The staff were all dumbfounded. The healing elder was already a weirdo as a security guard. Now that he was so violent and arrogant, that made him even weirder. Many people were silent as they watched. They did not know what the other party wanted to do. "Bah! Old thing! You poisoned so many people in the Lions Club today. Just wait for your revenge." Although Felix was also afraid of the healing elder, he was confident when he thought of his uncle. Then he thought about how he was respected by many people in Mysticor Enterprise, and how many women wanted to take the initiative to throw themselves at him. How could he face them if he lost face? The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. He took out his phone and called his uncle. As soon as the call went through, a ringtone sounded outside the crowd. Everyone looked over, then instinctively scattered, with some too scared to move, and others simply sitting down on the ground. A tall man with sharp eyebrows and fierce eyes walked over from outside the crowd. He exuded a strong aura, and behind him were dozens of people. All of them had proud expressions and were filled with killing intent. When Felix saw the person, it was as if he had seen his own father. He shouted as he ran towards the man. "Uncle, save me!" Thud. The healing elder raised his leg and kicked Felix's butt, sending him flying towards the man. Charlie Grant, who was very domineering, didn't expect his nephew to be kicked like a ball. Furious, he glared at the healing elder. "Old man, you're courting death.